This is an NBC News special report.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Jarrett alongside Joe Fryer here in New York. We have breaking news out of Israel this morning where Hamas has launched a surprise attack within Israel's borders overnight. First, launching rockets from the Gaza Strip, then sending militants into the streets of the southern part of Israel. Hundreds of people have been injured. Several have been killed, but that number could be much higher. You are looking at live pictures there.
Let's go right to NBC's Raf Sanchez, who is in the south of Israel. Raf, good morning. What is the latest where you are?
Joe, Laura, good morning. Israelis woke up today to find their worst nightmares had come true in the form of a massive surprise attack by Palestinian militants from Gaza. As we speak, Palestinian gunmen are inside Israeli cities and towns, something we have never before seen on this scale, and they are fighting running gun battles against Israeli ground forces. Hamas, the major Palestinian militant group that controls Gaza, says they have taken Israelis hostage, and they have taken them back inside of Gaza. Now, the Israeli military says this infiltration came by land, by sea, and by air in the form of Hamas gunmen on paragliders infiltrating into Israeli territory, and this was done under the cover of a barrage of more than 2,000 rockets fired in the early hours of this Shabbat morning. Guys, I wanted just to explain to you what the scene is where we are right now. We are on one of the major highways in southern Israel. You would expect this road to be full on a holiday weekend, and instead you can see behind me, this is an Israeli military checkpoint. Israeli forces here are searching all cars that are going past because they do not know at this point where these Palestinian gunmen are, and they are afraid these gunmen may try to be getting north towards Tel Aviv, towards Jerusalem. As we've been here, we have seen just a stream of Israeli special forces driving south towards the Gaza border, and they are heading to confront those gunmen in the towns and cities in the south. Guys.
Rob, just an incredible scene playing out there, the idea of armed gunmen going in. Can you tell us more about the power gliders?
We have never seen anything like this before, Laura. When Hamas has tried to get into southern Israel previously, they have done it sometimes through underground tunnels under the border. They have done it sometimes in small boats going out into the Mediterranean and then back onto the Israeli shoreline. This morning, for the first time, they crossed by air in paragliders. It is not clear how many of them, but these are armed, highly trained Hamas militants landing by air, catching the Israeli state completely by surprise. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed his people earlier today, and he said Israel is at war. This is above and beyond those rounds of fighting that the world has got used to over the last decade, where we see Israel and Hamas fighting for 72 hours a week. This is on a much, much bigger scale. There is at this point no official word on death tolls, but the videos we are seeing are absolutely harrowing, showing bodies, what appear to be bodies of both Israeli soldiers and civilians. And this is a country right now that is bracing for the absolute worst.
Raf, do we have any idea how many of these attackers have infiltrated Israel?
Joe, it's a really good question, and I asked the Israeli military earlier. They would not say, but just judging by the number of locations, at this moment there is fighting. The most recent information we have, at least 5 locations across southern Israel. That suggests that we are looking at squads in large numbers. I asked the Israeli military, are we talking dozens? Are we talking hundreds? They would not say. What they were prepared to say is that Israeli fighter jets are in action right now. We have been seeing them in the skies across southern Israel. They are striking targets inside of Gaza, trying to stop this barrage of rocket fire. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, there's an ambulance just coming past us now. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says what is going on right now in terms of Israeli airstrikes in Gaza is only the beginning of what will be a major, major Israeli retaliation. But, guys, the priority for the Israeli military right now is to regain control of these cities where there are still Israeli civilians inside, and nobody at this point knows the scale of the death toll.
Right,
Guys.
that's got to be the first priority, obviously, Raf. Do we have a sense of exactly how many people were taken? I know you told us that they were going across the border, making sure, obviously, that no more people are taken essentially as hostages. Do we know at all right now?
Laura, there is no more sensitive piece of information in Israel right now than how many people have been taken hostage, how many are alive, or how many are dead. The Israeli government, the nation of Israel, will go to enormous lengths to get its people back, whether they are live civilians, whether they are dead soldiers. And the scale of the Israeli response will be determined by how many Israelis are inside of Gaza right now. If there are civilians in large numbers there, we may see a situation where the Israeli government feels it has no choice. Laura, we're just hearing the air defense going off here. There's no sirens at the moment, so we're good. I'm going to keep talking to you. But this is just a very live situation. You can see Israeli forces on the ground behind me. Behind my camera operator, Dave Copeland, there's actually smoke from where a rocket hit earlier on. But depending on the number of Israeli civilians who are inside of Gaza, that will determine the scale of the Israeli response. And it may very well be that the government of Israel feels it has no choice but to mount some kind of large-scale ground offensive into Gaza in the densely populated cities of Khan Yunis, of Gaza City, where there are so many civilians among these Palestinian militants. And it is a situation like that we have already seen what appears to be a very serious loss of life this morning. But an Israeli ground invasion inside of Gaza could take this death toll to a whole new level. So everyone in this region is holding their breaths right now. Guys.
Raf Sanchez, you and your team continue to stay safe. We'll let you go for now, but we will be checking back with you later this morning.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, let's bring in NBC's chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel. He is on the phone with us. Richard, good morning. Your first reaction to this news?
Well, I think that Hamas and Israel are at war, and I think this is going to escalate into a more significant conflict over the next several hours, over the next several days. This is unprecedented, as Raf was saying. We've seen violence from the Palestinians. We've seen attacks from Gaza into Israel, but not this scale, where you're having potentially dozens of militants flying in on hang gliders and coming in by the sea and crossing in by land, presumably by tunnels or holes in the border fence. And the fact that they are still engaged in running battles in multiple locations in southern Israel is something that will be shocking to the Israeli people. I know that several of the airports and transit points into Israel are already facing delays or cancellations. The country is on alert. Israel said that it is now on war footing. We've heard from Hamas. They have acknowledged this operation. There have been some videos that have come out as well showing gunmen dressed in black preparing for this commando-style raid. And they say that it is retaliation for Israeli actions in Jerusalem, for Israeli actions around the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. So we've seen this tension. This is an old tension where there's buildup of tension, and the Palestinians will launch an attack in order to punish the Israelis from their perspective for excesses and atrocities. But we haven't seen something like this level of sophistication, and to catch the Israelis off guard, and then to keep this operation moving for hours now. This began at dawn. It is already afternoon in Israel, so this has been going on for multiple hours now. I think it's very likely that we're going to see an escalation in some sort of small-scale war, maybe bigger-scale war between Hamas and Israel, and I think we're in the early phases of that right now.
Richard, talk to us about that surprise factor. You know, Israelis have some of the best military intelligence anywhere. How does something like this happen?
Well, they don't have a lot of visibility inside Gaza. Now, Gaza itself, they have lots of intelligence, but clearly it wasn't as good. But Gaza is a place that is run by the Palestinians. We're talking about an area that is more or less closed off. It's often compared to the biggest prison in the world. We're talking just over 2 million people that live there, Gaza City being the biggest population center, very densely populated. And the Israelis They have informants, they have intelligence, but they don't live there. They don't patrol there. There are no Israeli settlers there. This is an area that is locked off, that is run by Hamas, and the Israelis would prefer to forget about the place and not have anything to do with it. But what happened is Hamas is in charge. Hamas is very militant, very organized. They've been looking for the leader of Hamas, Mohammed Deif, for years. He's the one who personally announced this operation. So this, from Hamas's point of view, is an enormous coup to carry out a sophisticated surprise attack like this. Israeli officials have said Hamas made a huge mistake because it's going to bring an enormous reprisal.
All right. Richard Engel, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your reporting and your context on this. We want to go back to Raf Sanchez, who is in the south of Israel. Raf, what is it you are seeing and hearing right now?
So, Joe, there is just so much activity around us. A convoy of Israeli special forces just drove past, sirens on, heading south. And the fact, as Richard was saying, this attack began hours ago. It is now 1:10 in the afternoon. The fact that we are still seeing Israeli reinforcements flooding to the south shows you that the Israeli military does not yet have a grip on this situation. This is not something that we are used to seeing. It is normally the Israelis who are confident, who are in control, but they seem to have been caught completely off guard here. Caught off guard in a way that we have not seen Israel surprised in exactly 50 years. You have to go back to October 1973, the Yom Kippur War, when Israel was surprised by a combined Egyptian-Syrian military assault. That was a war where, in the first days, people in this country really thought it might be the end of Israel. And there is, obviously, I wasn't here in 1973, but you were hearing those comparisons on the Israeli radio, and there is just a state of shock in this country that they could have been caught so off guard. Something else we've been seeing on the road, the truck has moved away now, but we just saw a truck carrying a battery of Israeli Iron Dome missile interceptors. This is this highly sophisticated Israeli air defense system developed with support from the United States. It is the backbone of Israel's defenses. It is what Israel relies on to protect its civilians from this rocket fire from Gaza. But whatever happened in the early hours of this morning, the Iron Dome was not able to stop this barrage. The Israeli military says it was more than 2,000 rockets fired. And, Joe, we have just seen plumes of smoke all across southern Israel where these rockets landed, on homes, on warehouses. And there is just a sense of disbelief at what is happening right now. Guys.
Raf, do you have a sense of, was there a failure of the defense system, of the Iron Dome, or was it that they were just getting hit in so many different ways at all at once? You just can't prepare for something like that.
It's a really good question, Laura. We asked the Israeli military earlier, was this an intelligence failure? How is it, on almost to the day, the 50th anniversary of the 1973 war, that Israel could be surprised again and on such a scale? And I will tell you, the Israeli military spokesman said it's a good question. He declined to answer it, but he said that there is going to be a lot of time to ask very hard, very probing questions about what happened here. But right now, their priority is this live firefight going on in cities to the south of me, and potentially a massive hostage rescue operation, both inside of Israeli cities, but potentially inside of Gaza as well. Guys.
Raf, this is an area that is familiar with conflict. Help us understand, put into context what's happening right now, how that fits into the historical context of conflict in the region.
Yeah, so we have seen rounds of fighting between Hamas militants in Gaza and the Israeli military almost on a yearly basis, going back to sort of 2008, 2009. Major war in 2014. There was another major war in May 2021, not on the same scale. What is happening today is just a different order of magnitude. Normally, the fighting in these situations takes place inside of Gaza, with the exception of the rocket fire on Israeli cities. What is happening right now is the fighting is on the Israeli side of the border, and that is not something we have ever seen on this scale before. Just to give you a little more historical context, during that war in 2014, one Israeli soldier excuse me, going back into the early 2000s, one Israeli soldier, a young man named Gilad Shalit, was captured by Hamas militants. He was taken inside of Gaza. He was held for years there, and Israel, unable to rescue him by force, was ultimately forced to release more than 1,000 Palestinian militants to secure him. And that gives you a sense of the value Israel places on the lives of its people. It is hard to overstate what a crisis it is if there are multiple, dozens potentially, of Israeli civilians being held inside Gaza, and it is hard to overstate the urgency with which Israel feels it will need to respond to a crisis on this scale. Guys.
All right, Raph, stay safe there. We are going to come back to you regularly throughout the morning. We want to turn now to our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, joining us by phone. Andrea, good morning to you. I imagine this was not what you thought you would wake up to on a Saturday morning. Talk to us about the larger historical context. We heard there from Raph, is the 50th anniversary of that other awful surprise attack back in 1973. Set the scene for us, if you will.
Well, Raph is exactly right. This is so unprecedented. We've had the skirmishes before and outbreaks. I was there in 2021, but there was always a trigger, something that happened. And then it was the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a holy site to the Palestinians and to all Arabs, in fact, where there had been a trigger, in each of these instances, in the intifadas, the first, second, and third intifada in the West Bank. But Gaza is different. Gaza has always been, as Richard and Rolf were saying, a place, a no man's land, really, for Israelis. And there have been these incidents before. The U.S. in the past, secretaries of state, Hillary Clinton in 2009, intervened, went there, negotiated a solution, but it was always small scale. Small scale, though, was always major to Israelis. Israelis take this, so seriously, and this is beyond anything that we've ever seen before. And it is on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which is something that people were holding conferences here. I was at one in New York on Thursday at the Council on Foreign Relations with the former Israeli Prime Minister and other officials from both countries and some of my journalist colleagues. So it was always an academic exercise on the anniversaries of the Yom Kippur War, never anything like this. And again, there was a lot of tension growing in the West Bank and elsewhere in the country because of growing friction between the Palestinians and the Israelis, because of the most right-wing coalition, Netanyahu's coalition, possibly taking more land, because of the settlement conflicts. But that was in the West Bank. Gaza has been something that Israel, as Richard Engel was saying, would prefer to ignore because it is ungovernable. And it's always been a tragedy from the Palestinian perspective. And there's this division between Hamas, which runs Gaza, which has always been the most radical of the Palestinians. The other piece of this is that there has been really no Palestinian strong leadership for many, many years. No negotiations really between the Palestinians and the Israelis since 2014. And they have been, tentatively talking, intensive negotiations actually, which haven't reached anything other than a framework for a very different kind of resolution of the Israeli-Arab situation between the Saudis and Israel, recognition by Saudi Arabia and Israel, which people in Israel have been saying, and some in the Netanyahu coalition, Netanyahu himself has been saying would be the end of friction in this region, something that hard right members of the coalition have opposed. But that's the kind of thing that has been discussed at the UN when we were there just a few weeks ago. Nothing has been contemplated like this. The surprise aspect of this is also shocking. You've been talking about the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome has been, virtually impenetrable. There have always been one or two stray rockets, but nothing on the scale of this. And as Rolf was saying, back when one Israeli soldier was held for many, many years, 1,000 Palestinians were turned over when negotiations to try to get him out failed. They never forget. They never leave anyone behind. And here, when you have potentially soldiers as well as civilians, and all Israelis serve in the military, all except the most religious group of Israelis have required military service, men and women, for decades. Well, the entire country will be, completely seized with this. This is not something that will divide Israelis. There will be an investigation as to how they failed to see it coming, and there will be political ramifications from this. But this comes after a period of a full year of full, angry divisions involving the military, former intelligence, protests against the Netanyahu government, the coalition government. That was over judicial reform. That was over democratic principles. Nothing like this, though, could happen without uniting the Israeli citizenry. And so the how did this happen aspects of it will come much later. This is, as Netanyahu says, war, and there's no real Palestinian leadership in Gaza, no communication with any of them in order to have negotiations to try to resolve this. This will have to be resolved, and the Americans will have to get into it. This is something that the State Department and the National Security Council are going to have to address immediately, because they cannot see America's closest ally and the only real democracy in the Middle East overwhelmed. The relationship between Israel and the United States is so critical.
Right. All right, Andrea Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us early this morning. We really do appreciate it. We do want to go back to Raf Sanchez one more time and check in with him. Raf, do we have an idea, this surprise attack by Hamas, what the objective is here? Is it terror? Is it to get territory? Are we hearing anything about why this is happening and why it's happening now?
Yeah, Joe, so we have heard an official statement from what Hamas calls its military wing earlier, and they say that this is retaliation for the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. They say that this is retaliation for what has been happening at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. That is the third holiest site in Islam. It's known as the Temple Mount to Jews. It's the holiest site in Judaism. It is one of the most combustible, incendiary spots in this entire geopolitical region. And they say that this is an act of revenge for what they see as decades and decades of Israeli occupation and mistreatment of the Palestinian people. Now, to the Israeli government, to the Israeli people, this is very clearly an act of terrorism, that these are armed Hamas gunmen going into civilian areas, firing rockets at cities and at towns all across southern Israel. And they say they will treat this as terrorism. Just to give you a sense of the activity here, you have behind me, these are Israeli border police. They are manning this checkpoint. They are making sure that none of these gunmen are able to hide in cars and head back further into Israel. And then over this way, you can see there are at least 5 ambulances behind me. And guys, every couple of minutes, more and more Israeli reinforcements are speeding to the south through this checkpoint, heading down towards Gaza. We just a moment ago saw an Israeli armored vehicle mounting the sidewalk here, driving around a police car and absolutely flying to the south. You can see these are members of the Israeli border police who are just walking past me now. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation. The Israeli military is calling up thousands and thousands of reservists as they try, first of all, as an absolute top priority, to clear these Hamas militants out of these southern cities and then begin to strike back inside of Gaza. Guys.
All right, Raf, we are going to come back to you soon. Stay safe out there. Our thanks to you and your team. We will have much more coming up this morning on Saturday Today and throughout the day on the networks of NBC and NBCnews.com.
For now, we're going to return to your regularly scheduled programming. Have a good morning.
Good evening. The horror of the unprecedented attack on Israel Saturday morning when armed Palestinian militants surged into that country is coming into sharper focus today. We just learned several Americans are among the dead. And of the more than 600 Israelis who died, 260 of the bodies were found at the site of a music festival inside Israel near the border with Gaza. And it appears some attending the festival may have been taken hostage. Fighting raged on today with pockets of Palestinians still inside Israeli borders and Israel retaliating again with military strikes against Gaza. The number of Palestinian deaths now over 320. And the U.S. military is now sending an aircraft carrier strike group to the region in support of Israel, also potentially to help evacuate Americans from there. We have a lot to cover tonight. We begin with Raf Sanchez in Israel.
Tonight, Israel taking the war to Gaza. Hundreds of airstrikes bringing buildings crashing down. Targeting what the Israeli military says are Hamas tunnels and command centers.
Israel is preparing for every instance, including a ground invasion, air invasion, everything. This is our 9/11.
But inside Israel's own territory, fierce gun battles underway, with Palestinian militants still at large. More than 24 hours after launching their surprise attack. People cowering in their cars as fighting rages on this highway. More than 600 Israelis killed, according to the government, a staggering toll that's rising by the hour. The White House National Security Council confirming several Americans are among the dead. New video showing how, under the cover of rockets, Hamas fighters infiltrated Israel by paraglider. This music festival, one of their first targets. Israeli emergency services saying 260 people were killed here.
And they were just all around me, and they were going tree by tree and shooting everywhere from two sides. And I saw many people, people were dying, all around.
Here, a festival goer screams for help as she's dragged into Gaza. Her boyfriend, hands behind his back, helpless to save her. Her name is Noah Argamani, a 25-year-old student, and the only child of her father, Yaakov. Noah seen inside Gaza here, apparently unharmed.
If you could speak to the people who are holding Noah, what would you tell them?
Please don't hurt her. Please, this is a cry from a father. Don't harm her. Send her back in one piece. I beg you, please. We reach the southern city of Sderot, where bullet casings crunch underfoot, evidence of the thousands of rounds fired here.
This is all that's left of an Israeli police station that was overrun by Hamas militants. There was a 20-hour gun battle here.
With rockets streaking overhead, our team running for the nearest bomb shelter. But in Gaza, where 2 million civilians live under Hamas rule, there are no bomb shelters to run to. And the death toll among ordinary Palestinians, including children, expected to climb. Tonight, rockets fired from Lebanon by Hezbollah militants aligned with Hamas. The latest sign that a war which started in the Holy Land may not end here.
Raf Sanchez joins us now. Raf, it is almost too much to process. What is Israel saying about the possibility of sending ground troops into Gaza?
Kate, Israel's military says all options are on the table, but over the course of the day, we have seen columns of Israeli tanks moving towards the Gaza border, a possible sign that a ground offensive is imminent. Kate.
Good evening from Israel, a nation beyond stunned tonight, vulnerable in ways it has never had to accept after a far weaker adversary, Hamas, unleashed a ferocious attack over the weekend that seemed to come from everywhere, raining deadly rockets into residential streets and sending militant fighters across the Gaza border where they murdered and kidnapped Israeli civilians. Israel says it has retaken control of areas Hamas had seized. Tonight, Israeli officials cutting off Gaza, the Hamas stronghold stronghold, declaring it is under siege and hitting it with repeated airstrikes. Nearly 1,400 in Gaza and Israel have died in the attacks and counteroffensive. The U.S. confirming at least 11 Americans have been killed, and President Biden saying the U.S. believes Americans may be, some of those, being held by Hamas. Since we arrived on the ground here, we have seen incredible stories of bravery and loss and seen unforgettable images of violence. Tonight, Israel bombing the Hamas-run Gaza Strip, ordering a complete siege. No electricity, fuel, or food allowed inside as they hunt down the Palestinian militants responsible for the massive terror attack that's left hundreds dead, including Americans. What Israeli officials call their 9/11. Tonight, Israel's prime minister says airstrikes in Gaza are just the beginning.
We just started to hit the Hamas.
And now the race to find what Israel says are at least 100 hostages, with Hamas threatening to start executing them. Among those abducted, 25-year-old Noah Argamani screaming for help as she and her boyfriend are taken hostage by Hamas terrorists. This woman barefoot, her hands bloodied and tied behind her back, her face bleeding as she's forced into the back of a Jeep. And a mother crying, clutching her two children as they're about to be kidnapped. The horror starting Saturday morning at 6:30 when the biggest attack against Israel in decades began. Israel's vaunted military and intelligence agencies apparently caught by surprise. Hamas fighters coming in by land, sea, and air, including paragliders, getting past Israel's border barrier. Armed Hamas men in the back of trucks. And this video showing Hamas terrorists on foot, randomly opening fire. Going door to door, executing civilians. And unleashing a massacre at a music festival in southern Israel. Young revelers running for their lives. Others desperately crouching behind vehicles and bushes as the terror unfolded. Sahar Ben Salah saw friends die at the festival.
Seriously, it's really living hell. Never seen something like this. Bodies, all places for the slaughter. They slaughter us there. They didn't care if you are a man or a woman, you are young or old man. They are killers.
Israel releasing this chilling image from the aftermath. The dead in body bags. Officials say at least 260 people were killed. This drone video shows burned out cars strewn along the side of the road. By 11:30, Israel's prime minister declaring war on Hamas. Israeli military operations are launched, but others taking matters into their own hands. You were a grandfather on a mission.
Exactly.
Today, I met retired Israeli Major General Noam T-Bone. He got a text Saturday from his son Amir, who was staying with his family on a kibbutz near the Gaza border when Hamas arrived.
He told me, Dad, there are terrorists all around. They are shooting on the house. And I said only one thing, be quiet, I'm on my way.
Armed with only his pistol, Noam and his wife, who's also a retired military officer, drove to the kibbutz, joining Israeli soldiers in a gun battle with Hamas. You killed some of the terrorists.
I killed at least one, yeah.
You are a trained soldier, but still, you're protecting your family at that moment.
I was in many battles. This is by far the most important thing that I did in my life. I was protecting my family. I was protecting their whole community.
He arrived at his son's house, finding his family was hiding, terrified, but safe.
My little granddaughter, Galia, said, Grandpa came. And this is maybe the best words that I ever heard in my life.
Meanwhile, the death toll is also growing inside Gaza tonight. Palestinian officials say hundreds are dead from Israeli retaliation operations, including civilians, rescuers combing through rubble. We were sitting peacefully and then started feeling debris falling on us. My dad and sister were killed, this man says. Hamas is backed, armed, and financed by Iran. And tonight, former U.S. intelligence and military officials tell NBC News the unprecedented scale and sophisticated tactics Hamas used indicate Iran most likely played a significant role in the terror attack. Iran's president tonight praising the Hamas strike, which he calls resistance efforts, while Iran is denying direct involvement, and at least one Hamas official saying Iran was not involved. But the Wall Street Journal reporting that Iran helped Hamas plan the attack, giving it a green light last Monday, citing senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah. The White House says they do not have evidence to corroborate the report. Tonight, Israeli forces say they are still working to clear Hamas out of Israeli territory, with so many waiting for word on their loved ones held inside Gaza.
Right now, all we care is that they come home safely.
Like American Abby On, whose family texted her Saturday from southern Israel, describing Hamas gunmen inside their home.
They were overturning furniture and that they could hear gunfire, and they were locked in bomb shelters, and they began to communicate that they were afraid they wouldn't come out.
Did you know that they were taking hostages?
We knew at this point that they were slaughtering people.
Missing tonight, her American cousin, 3 of her grandchildren, and her son-in-law. She's seen this disturbing video online. Her cousin, 12-year-old Erez Calderon, being abducted by Hamas kidnappers. When you review the moments of that day, do you keep coming back to the video?
Yes. I mean, when I saw that video, my husband and I burst into tears and started shaking. It's something that no parent, no human can ever imagine, to see a child in the hands of terrorists.
Tonight, desperate for her family's nightmare to end.
It felt like a horror movie. This doesn't happen in real life. And also, you live in a country who boasts one of the best armies in the world. So it felt like all the wrong things happened at the right moment for this to take place. And it's just been, it's hard to close your eyes at night.
The Israel-Hamas war stoking protests across the U.S. at various college campuses. In the Northeast, a pro-Palestinian demonstration at Brooklyn College. And at Columbia University, massive crowds as supporters of both Israel and Palestinians held competing protests.
Columbia, open your eyes!
In the nation's capital, American university students gathering in solidarity with Israel.
The horror has reached an unimaginable level.
While supporters of Palestinians made their presence known.
It's scary. I mean, I walked up here with my flag on and I instantly took it off because, you know, people are telling you to be careful.
At UNC Chapel Hill, tensions boiling between supporters of the two sides. Arizona State University Students for Justice in Palestine holding a rally today outside the Student Union, one day after the school's Hillel Jewish organization held a vigil in support of Israel. The school acknowledging the distress and concern caused by the week's events in a statement, but some Jewish students say it doesn't go far enough.
There was no real statement saying what happened was wrong, which I think is stressing out a lot of the Jewish students.
A war of words also playing out in statements from student groups and university's leadership. The University of Florida president issuing a viral statement saying in part, quote, "There is no defense for terrorism. This shouldn't be hard." The NYU Law Student Bar Association president possibly out of a campus title and future job offer at a law firm for writing "Israel bears full responsibility for Hamas's attack" in a weekly bulletin, leaving some of the school's Jewish community on edge.
I've honestly been avoiding campus. I didn't go to class this afternoon.
The Student Bar Association voting to start the president's removal process as a result, and NYU condemning the terrorist attack on Israel in a statement. At Harvard, its Palestinian solidarity groups initially releasing a joint statement holding the Israeli regime entirely responsible for all the unfolding violence.
At the end of the day, this is a group that seeks the destruction of the Jewish race, and it's not the right time to be issuing a pro-Palestinian statement.
Backlash quickly ensued, a professor posting a photo of a truck driving around campus showing photos, which he redacted, of some of the students who signed the statement. Some groups formally apologizing and retracting their signatures, while over 4,000 members of the Harvard community signed a counter statement.
There's a lot of tension. A lot of people have missed class.
Harvard's president condemning the terrorist atrocities perpetuated by Hamas, emphasizing that the student body does not speak for Harvard University.
I feel like Harvard very visibly and loudly stood by Israel, but I don't hear the same frustration for the blood that's been shed for the Palestinians.
Students across the country wondering whose voices will be loudest.
Valerie Castro joins us now from our studios in New York. Valerie, with so many demonstrations around the country there, are there concerns that things could become violent? We know a former Hamas leader has called for Friday to be a global day of anger. Is the NYPD doing anything to prepare for that possibility in New York?
Well, Allison, we should say for the most part, the protests and rallies, though they have been tense, they have remained relatively peaceful, or at least without any major violence. But an NYPD spokesperson tells NBC New York that all officers will be in uniform tomorrow around the city, and there will be added patrols in key areas, including schools and houses of worship, as a precaution. New York Governor Kathy Hochul spoke just within the last few hours at a press conference. They were discussing plans to ensure the safety and security of New Yorkers. She had some very strong words. Take a listen.
I want all New Yorkers to feel confident going to a synagogue, going to school, walking to the streets of New York and throughout our state over the next few days. And those who seek to use Hamas's violence as justification for violence of their own, we have no tolerance for your hate. I condemn violence of every kind in New York. And I want to be clear. When I say every kind, that's exactly what I mean.
The governor also went on to condemn any hate directed towards Palestinian New Yorkers, saying, quote, a community that is cherished and respected in our state. It's important to note the NYPD says it has not received any new specific or credible threats. Similar security measures are being taken in other large cities around the country, including around the D.C. area.
On both sides of the border, a sense a ground war is imminent. Israel's military massing while in Gaza, which is roughly the size of Philadelphia. But with a third more people, there is no way out. Richard Engel is near the border tonight.
Come in. There's an air war in Gaza tonight, with Hamas firing barrages of rockets toward Israel, to little effect. Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system launching tiny projectiles at supersonic speed, intercepting and destroying nearly all of them. Israel's airstrikes are not being stopped. They're slamming into Gaza, where there are no air defenses. The United Nations is sounding the alarm of a growing humanitarian crisis. Human rights groups are calling for civilians to be allowed to leave and for aid to enter the 139 square mile territory that's home to 2 million Palestinians, 40% of them under 15. Israel says it will keep attacking Gaza until Hamas is destroyed. The Israeli military says it only targets Hamas. But what about the children? Medical officials say more than 1,500 Palestinians have been killed and 6,000 wounded. And those numbers could grow quickly. Israel's military is amassing tanks and troops along the border with Gaza. Its chief of staff saying now it is time for war and that the head of Hamas and all those who operate under him deserve to die. 22-year-old Palistia Al-Akkad lives in Gaza.
The media is barely covering any news because of the situation. There is no electricity, there is no connection. Like, Israelis are literally bombing everywhere, nowhere is safe. These words, life in Gaza, right now they don't make any sense to any Gazan living in here because we don't know what does the word life mean. We're expecting death at any minute. We're expecting that the whole Gaza Strip will be erased at any minute.
The Gaza Strip is bordered by Israel, the Mediterranean Sea, and Egypt. All exits are closed and blocked. Refugees are not streaming out. This isn't Ukraine. No one is taking in the people of Gaza.
We couldn't handle this amount of injuries, and it's just heartbreaking.
Dr. Sarah Al-Saka is a Palestinian surgeon based in Gaza. She says she's working 24-hour shifts, and when she can, is posting to social media to show conditions there.
No one can leave Gaza. No one can enter Gaza. There is no crossing borders, nothing left for anyone to do. It's a huge, big cage that we are trapped inside, and someone from outside is just keep on bombing, non-stop bombing, and there is nowhere else to go.
Israel says it had no choice but to attack, to disarm and deter Hamas, after more than 1,500 gunmen stormed into Israel, butchered entire families, desecrated their bodies, killed at least 1,300 Jews and took hostages, including children and the elderly. Israel's reprisal is underway tonight. It is massive, intensifying, and could trigger a regional war.
Richard, I've been watching your camera feed out of the corner of my eye. You're by the Gaza border, and it looks quite active there tonight.
Yes, Lester, Israel is continuing to carry out airstrikes into the Gaza Strip all night. And we know that there are between 500 and 600 Palestinian Americans in Gaza, and that negotiations are underway with the U.S., Israel, and Egypt to evacuate them. And based on what we see here, they are in imminent danger.
Good evening from Israel. As Hamas rockets streaked over Tel Aviv tonight, warning sirens briefly interrupted delicate high-level talks to dial back the Israel-Hamas war. And there is late word that President Biden may travel to Israel as early as this week. Secretary of State Antony Blinken already on the ground here tonight, leading the push for a diplomatic resolution to the crisis. Meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet, the group forced to take shelter twice after rocket alerts sounded. The U.S. tonight also pushing for the opening of Egypt's border crossing with Gaza to allow Americans and others to leave Gaza and allow vital supplies into the territory. With Israel postured to wage a full-scale ground assault at any time in Gaza, Hamas has posted video of an Israeli woman it claims is one of the hostages it holds and says it is prepared to release non-Israeli hostages if conditions allow. In a moment, part of my conversation with the man who successfully negotiated a prisoner release with Hamas years ago. It's where we start tonight. Tonight, the first video of a hostage held inside Gaza, released by Hamas. In it, 21-year-old Maya Shem asks to be brought home as soon as possible and says she's being given medical care. It's unclear if she's being forced to make the statement. Meanwhile, a Hamas leader says non-Israeli captives will be released from Gaza if conditions allow. Hamas is holding 199 hostages, according to the Israeli military. Gershon Baskin negotiated with Hamas to secure the high-profile release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit in 2011. He says he's been in contact with Hamas every day since the attack. What's the best approach to even open a dialogue with Hamas?
The best approach is understanding that it can't be directly done by Israel. To start a dialogue with Hamas, we have to understand who can do it. And the ones who can do it are the countries that have influence over Hamas, which are Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt, and Iran.
Baskin says there's a small window of opportunity to make a deal to release hostages.
It's a matter of days, probably a week, before the Israeli ground forces go into Gaza. That's when the window for negotiation closes.
But that means that hostages are sacrificed.
It means that hostages are going to be tried to be freed, and they might be sacrificed. My sense of the pulse of the Israeli public right now, the government and the military, is that the primary objective today is to remove Hamas from its ability to govern. And that means that hostages may be sacrificed. This hurts me so much to say that the hostages might be considered additional casualties of the war for Israel's survival.
It comes amid a flurry of diplomatic activity. 3 U.S. officials tell NBC News President Biden is strongly considering a trip to Israel as early as this week, while Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his war cabinet for hours today, a meeting interrupted by air raid sirens.
You know our deep commitment to Israel's right, indeed its obligation, to defend itself and to defend its people.
A critical part of those talks, aid for Gaza, where the humanitarian crisis is worsening by the minute. Hospitals are in complete chaos. There is no power. With morgues full, ice cream trucks are now being used to store bodies, while trucks carrying supplies have not been allowed to enter Gaza. Just across the border sits the Israeli town of Sderot, now being evacuated ahead of a possible ground invasion. Here in Sderot, you can hear the constant whine of Israeli drones, presumably looking for targets. In the town itself, more than half the population has already evacuated. For those who remain, time is running out. The last buses evacuating people have come and gone, and the sounds of war are growing closer. Moments later, we heard just how close. Well, we heard the sound of incoming shells. We moved into one of these public shelters with some other journalists here. Then, as we started to leave, another explosion. Outside we thought it was the all clear, but we heard another bang very close by. No one was hurt, and we soon left. But staying behind is Rachel Maddow, who's helping coordinate evacuations. Are you going to leave?
No. It's scary, it's not simple, but we love Sderot. Our heart is here, we can't leave when we know they need us here.
This city official also vowing to stay. How dangerous is it to remain in Sderot? He says it's very dangerous because terrorists are still walking around the area near Gaza. The Israeli military says this newly released video was from a body camera worn by a Hamas militant during October 7th's brutal attack. The head of Israel's security services now taking responsibility for failing to prevent it, writing in a letter, despite a series of actions, we were unable to generate a sufficient warning that would allow the attack to be thwarted. Adding, as the person at the head of the organization, the responsibility for this is mine. Tonight, so many families are now burying their loved ones, with more than 4,000 people dead 10 days into this war.
Just felt this is going to be like the best night, like in the holidays, Shabbat and everything, and we were like prepared with an apartment and our equipment, and everything was there. It was magical. You know, I've been to festivals in Israel. This was a big one. It's a known one. There was a lot of, you know, beautiful people, great vibes. We're going to rave.
We started dancing and everything was perfect, and I was happy, surrounded by people I love.
It was like the sunrise. Everyone was just, you know, jumping and having fun.
I started seeing things in the sky and not understanding what's happening around.
At about 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, October 7th, Hamas rockets begin to rain down on Israel. The Supernova Music Festival, just 3 miles from the Gaza border, is well underway. Festival goers stop to look at the sky. Some take pictures, unaware of the horror to come.
The rockets started, and after 45 minutes, we're realizing that the terrorist, it's 200 meters from us.
By 7 a.m., dozens of Hamas terrorists breach the festival site. Within moments, panic erupts.
You hear the bullets, you saw left and right, and you see people go down, and you just want to survive. Well, after a few minutes, we understand that you have terrorists in another place, and another place, and everywhere.
I think that was the moment when I understand that maybe it's the end, and maybe we're gonna die here. It felt like in my next step, they're gonna shoot me.
There is just one main road, Route 232, out of the festival grounds. Some festival goers start to escape by car. This dashcam video from 7:40 a.m. captures a driver taking repeated fire from Hamas terrorists while trying to escape.
And there was a traffic jam because the route outside, there was one road outside. It was blocked, both sides.
As cars begin to pile up, some drive east into the desert.
We were around like 300, 400 cars in one column, and we hearing the bullets, right? You have to understand, the whole time there's bombs, bullets. You know, people are in chaos. There was panic. You know, it was rising. And then we just see around 1,000 people just run, you know, in chaos. When we decide, you know, to ditch the car and just run for our lives.
We run away from another place to other place, every time shooting us, no matter what, when you're going, shooting us. And we don't know from where, and we don't know where to run.
The moment we started to run, it felt like we're ducks. Plain and simple. And I think the feelings of all of us were like, we can't believe it was from party to this after like 1 hour. We were like, where is the army? Where is the police? What, you know, is going on here?
GoPro video shot by Hamas captures attackers pausing outside a row of festival bathrooms. This stall appears to be red and occupied, indicating someone is inside. Shots are fired into the stalls one by one. Some festival goers hide in the bushes and trees, including Noah Kalash and her boyfriend. This unidentified man and woman take cover in a bush about half a mile northeast of the festival along Route 232. About a mile south from them, another group seeks refuge in a bomb shelter. Dashcam footage from 7:55 a.m. shows Hamas terrorists outside that bunker. It was about an hour into the attack. Inside this shelter is 23-year-old Hirsch Goldberg Poland.
So I turned my phone on, I believe at 8:23 in the morning. And when I turned it on, there were 2 texts in a row from Hirsch at 8:11. The first one said, "I love you." And immediately at 8:11 also it said, "I'm sorry." And so I knew immediately wherever he was, it was a terrible situation. They were all civilians at a music festival. They were fish in a barrel, sitting in this bomb shelter.
One of the terrorists throws what appears to be a grenade into the bomb shelter. Shortly after, a man runs out of the bunker before being shot. The grenade then appears to detonate.
We've spoken to eyewitnesses. We know that Hirsch's arm from the elbow down was severed, was blown off, and that he tied a tourniquet around with his shirt, and Hamas came in after the gunfire settled down and said, "Anyone who can walk, stand up and walk out." And he got up and he walked out with 5 other people. Then the police told us one thing they knew is that the last known cell signal from his phone was on the border with Gaza.
By 10 a.m., festival security guard Din Tesler on the left and his best friend Bar Burstein get separated, trying to help people get to safety.
We're separated because we saw terrorists very close to us, and after this, I been alone. When I survived, his brother called me and asked me if I know what happened to Bar, and he told me that he kidnapped him, and then I saw the video. It was like my brother, and the thinking that I'm here and he's there, it's killing me from the inside.
Bar and Hirsch are likely among the more than 150 hostages Israel says are in Gaza. On social media, Hamas celebrates the capture of Noah Argamani, seen here being taken away on a motorcycle. In Arabic, posting, "Our guys have done their duty." Her boyfriend, Avinatan Or, was also taken. Satellite imagery shows smoke from fires after the attack begins. Enhanced images show fires burning around southern Israel, including several near roads by the festival. 5 days after the attack, NBC News correspondent Raf Sanchez visits the grounds to witness the aftermath.
This is our first time inside the Supernova Festival since that attack in the early hours of Saturday morning. This was a place of music, a place of dancing, a place of joy, and now there is just a deathly, deathly silence here. This was one of the artistic tents at the festival. You can see people here were painting, they were expressing themselves. And this is just one of these many scenes we've seen all across southern Israel, a place that is frozen in time. Over here is one of the parked cars. There are the makings of everything you'd need for a fun weekend at a music festival. It looks like this person has paint, there's chocolate in there, there's Kleenex, there's extra water. This was what was the main bar at the festival, and you can see everywhere there are just half-drunk bottles of Johnny Walker whiskey, of vodka. People were having a good time here when this murderous wave swept in.
It's a miracle. I could have stayed for another cigarette and get, shot in the head. That's how it was.
Gal and his friends walked through the desert for 4 hours before being brought to safety. Noah Kalash and her boyfriend hid in the bushes for 8 hours until they were rescued.
8 hours, completely silent, not able to speak or to breathe or to do anything.
But from where we've been at, Saturday at 5 in the morning till now, it's just like a nightmare. Just a nightmare.
هذا ميار وهذا تولين وهذا يوسف وهذا زاهر وهذا سوار وهذا ورد وهذا فاطمة وهذا مايس. هاي اللي جاي انا راح اعبي لك ميه واحده.
واحد بفكر يضرب اولاده، واحد بفكر يسرق، بفكر يفعل. طيب سمعنا اللي احنا فيه. يا طيب الله يبارك تفضل.
هاي مية هذه بتاعت الغسيل. يلا تعالي تغسل معاي.
أختي الصغيرة بتضلها تعيط وأنا بغسلها أوعيها وأمي مستشهدة وأبويا في غزة مش قادر يوصل الرسالة إله، يعني مش قادرين إيش نعرف نعمل.
هاي اللي قاعد بعمل لحظة الصغيرة قاعد حليب لها من الصبح ما كلتش، قاعدة بتعيط عشان جعانة. ولا حدا يرضعها. يعني أنا بحسها يعني بتفهملهاش. كانت الأم يعني كانت هي يعني إذا جاعت يعني تعرف لها، هي يعني إذا بدها تاكل تعرف لها، إذا بدها يعني تسكت، إذا بتعيط إذا بدها تسكتها. يعني أنا ما كنتش أنا ما بعرف لهاش ولا شيء. يعني أنا هي أختي الصغيرة لما أشوفها والله بتحسر عليها أمي، والله ما بعرفش يعني. حتى حصرونا أمي وحصرونا يعني من وين هذا أجيب لها حليب وبامباز، والله ما أنا عارف من وين أجيبها. هاي لا من السقعة بتعيط. طير الحمام روح يا حمام لا تطول، يلا تنام يلا تنام يلا تنام يلا تنام. إيه إيه زي هذه السكينة ديرة خالص. أنا مش عارف إنه لقيت إذا في حدا عايش من عيلتنا غير عمي. لما شفته احنا المساعدات الدوليه يعني في بيعرفوا بس انه ابويا مفقود وامي مستشهده، بس بيجوا يعني بيساعدوناش ولا في شيء. اما بتجينا مساعدات خفيفه هنا. مسافات فعاد بيجينا كل يوم علبه فول او علبه حمص يعني، او بيجينا يعني امراض خضره، امراض مساعده يعني نقديه. وانا هنا رايحه اجيب لهم اي حاجه لعبه يلعبوا فيها، ويعني اجيب لهم مش يعني انسوا الحظ منه. مدير المفروض يكون معنا ابو وام، وبطلنا هلقيت ولا حدا يعرف. واحنا لما ننام هلقيتها كل اخوتي بيصيروا يعني قاعدين كل ما تصير اي خبطه بيقعدوا يعيطوا بيقعدوا يصوتوا، يعني فيش ولا حدا عندهم يعني يحسسهم بالامان.
Tonight, anguish and anger on display in Jerusalem as thousands mark 6 months since the October 7th Hamas attacks and the start of the war. The families of the remaining 133 hostages in Gaza gather to remember them. A powerful moment as they assembled on stage and screamed in frustration and grief. Lishai Lavi Miran's husband Omri is still being held. She tells him that she loves him and then screams, "Enough." On Saturday night, protesters demanded an end to the war. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, more than 33,000 have been killed in Gaza. Meanwhile, significant developments on the battlefield. Tanks on the move as the Israeli military announced that it will withdraw its ground forces from southern Gaza. The remaining IDF troop presence is now tasked with holding the northern half of the Strip. For Palestinians now returning to their homes, there is shock at the extent of the destruction, like here in Khan Yunis. There is bombing everywhere, this mother in Rafah wails, her daughter bursting into tears on her lap.
Hala joins us now from Tel Aviv. So Hala, 6 months in, tell us more about this new round of peace talks in Cairo.
Well, Hamas has sent a team to negotiate, but the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeated his demand that there will be no deal unless all hostages are released. Hallie.
NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez was at that soccer field in the Golan Heights and filed this report.
These escalating tensions began right here on this soccer field in the mountain village of Majd al-Shams. It was a little after 6 p.m. on what was a normal Saturday night. Kids were playing on this soccer field, and then the sirens started blaring, and just a couple of seconds later, that rocket came crashing down right here, killing those 12 children. You can see there is a memorial to them here, all of them aged between 10 and 16 years old. And this rocket brought death and destruction to this community, but it has also put the broader Middle East on edge. The Israeli government says it was the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah who dominates southern Lebanon who fired the rocket. Hezbollah is denying that, but Israel says they have no doubt and that they will strike back. The Israeli Security Cabinet meeting overnight, authorizing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his defense minister to choose the time and the manner of that retaliation. Netanyahu has said it will be on a scale that we have not seen before in these 9.5 months of fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. Now, the United States is saying it supports Israel's right to defend itself, but it is also urging restraint. It does not want to see an all-out conflict on Israel's northern border at the same time that it is trying to finalize a ceasefire in Gaza. And the tensions here make that diplomatic effort much more complicated. CIA Director Bill Burns was in Rome yesterday. He was meeting with counterparts from Israel, from Qatar, and from Egypt. We expect that there are going to be further talks later on in the week, but at this point, there's no sign of a breakthrough. I will just say a little earlier today, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was here at this site. He was visiting this memorial, and there was an angry crowd of locals who gathered, who were protesting, who were shouting, and they made very, very clear they feel that the Prime Minister and the Israeli government did not do enough to protect these children. Back to you.
Raf Sanchez, thank you for that reporting. And let me now bring in Matt Bradley. He's in Beirut for us. And Matt, how is that country preparing for retaliatory strikes?
Well, we don't know exactly. Hezbollah is a black box, but we have heard some things from the Associated Press and others saying that there are rumors, there is talk that Hezbollah and other militant groups might be moving around some of their assets, trying to prepare for what could be, as my colleague Raf Sanchez just reported, a devastating attack by the Israelis. It's certain that even though there's a lot of confidence here and elsewhere in Washington that the Israelis understand and that Hezbollah understands that if anything this was a mistake, this is not the kind of incident, not the kind of attack that is going to go unanswered by the Israelis. There's a lot of outrage, as Raf was just saying, in Israel. Right now, here in Lebanon, there is an enormous amount of fear. Because there is this feeling that while the vast majority of people in this country don't necessarily vote directly for Hezbollah, they have seats in the parliament. They have ministerial positions. They have the ability to wander around the world and have negotiations and diplomacy with various people, unlike Hamas officials, another Iran-backed group. So this is a powerful organization, one that's thought to have something like 150,000 different projectiles, many of them precision targeting, sophisticated weapons that could reach deep into Israel. So this is thought that even if there were some sort of escalation on the Israeli side, that Hezbollah would probably fight back, and then it would be the civilians in the crossfire who, like we've seen time and time again in this region, would be bearing the brunt of this widening conflict.
You know, Matt, you and I have talked several times before about the potential for a wider war and escalation. Does this time feel different?
Well, this is the thing, and it's kind of hard to parse this out because I've actually been here, as you know, for months and months and months, and every day we think, is this the big one? Is this the one that's going to set off a massive war between Hezbollah and Israel? And so far, over nearly the past 10 months, there hasn't been that kind of outbreak, that kind of moment where the war becomes less rules-based, less restrained and becomes a completely unrestrained fight. So, yes, this looks very different because this is the largest single death toll from a single incident among Israelis ever since those October 7th attacks back last year. But at the same time, as you mentioned, we've seen time and time again that both the Israelis and Hezbollah and the Iranians, and during one episode just a couple of months ago, have shown an unusual determination to step back from the brink. And that's something that, you know, as we become more and more pessimistic, when we think about how there's something that's awful that's about to happen, it is very unlikely that the Israelis are going to let this pass without some sort of retaliation. Whether or not that retaliation ends up living up to the worst nightmares that this region has come upon in several generations, which is what people are thinking about this potential war between Hezbollah and Israel, or Iran and the United States, bringing in all sorts of actors, that's unclear. The Israelis could show enough restraint to put Hezbollah on notice while at the same time avoiding a wider war. That's what this diplomacy is all about.
Matt Bradley, live for us in Lebanon. Matt, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.